It is now 2 o'clock, so we are going to jump in and we're going to get started right now with how to overcome poor retention. I'm Craig O'Neill. With me today is Jeremy Glasgow, our Vice President of Marketing here at AutoTexme, one of our newest members of the team. And Jeremy, I just think it's been great these last several months here that you've been with us. Wonderful things happening. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that this topic, at least partially, probably mostly inspired through conversations I've had with Jeremy.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Greg. Yeah, we hang out in vehicle owner experiences, right? When you and I talk, that's usually what we're talking about is like a lot of us can get focused on what's happening shop side, but there's a lot going on in the vehicle owner's brain, right?
Oh,
we can
absolutely.
talk about that, feel that, know that. So yes, I love this topic.
So many things going on. And we focus a lot of our energy on some of our other webinars on things during the visit. And we do highlight a couple pieces where we're going to try to get some follow-ups out, get some of those conversations moving where we're going to bring customers back in the door. But we haven't really dedicated an entire webinar anyways on that topic. So our previous Art of Advising type webinars, that's the main difference between this talk and those. We focused on those behaviors during the visit that lead to a great customer experience whilst there.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to get them back in the door. And there is so many areas of overlap within AutoTexme itself, the tools and the practices that we teach, the way we set expectations, all those things do come together really, I think, in a full circle pattern. But we're going to just dive into some of those reasons why this is a challenge still in most repair facilities that we come across.
Yeah, Craig, my thought on this topic was it's always so pressing that it's a problem, but the solution always seems so elusive, right? Like we know this isn't like an issue, right? We maybe see somebody twice half the time. What about the other half? We know it's there. What's the elusive part? What's going on in the other half? So
exactly. So a little bit background on us. If you haven't been to any of our webinars before, I'm Craig O'Neill, Vice President of Training here at AutoTexme. I've been with AutoTexme about 5.5 years now. And that surprises me because the time is flying by. Chris, I met him quite a while ago, and just being a part of his team here is really just been deeply fulfilling. I get to work with shops in a way that I never imagined I'd get to do. And with my 20 years of background in my family business and the transmission part of the industry, I would call this a dichotomic difference from where the trajectory I thought I was going to go in this industry and where it turned out. So talking on these things, getting to dive deeper into these topics, pretty passionate about this. You'll see that in most of my talks, and that's why I'm glad to be here. Jeremy?
Yeah, well, Chris found me, Craig. I don't know if I've told you this. I wrote a playbook, how to get your first app like a pro. And I think he stumbled across me as that. And really, though, it wasn't much to do about apps. And I think that's where Chris and I kind of really started figuring this out. Like we had to be working together. It really is down to the app is just a tool, right? Like all the other things we have, it's just a tool. What was the reason behind it? It's going to be a lot of things we talk about today. It's what is the tool that can be used that can get a customer to engage and do some of the things we're going to be talking about. So, kind of coming along that what I've noticed, Greg, anyway, working with the team here, like what you said, 5.5 years, I'm going on, checking the calendar here, 2 months.
Yep.
So do I have the date right? So if the DNA of me talking, just set me straight sometimes, Craig, and I'm going to be I'm hoping I'm becoming a part of the DNA over here. So.
Oh, dude. Yeah. It didn't take you long at all. And I think Chris found most of us somehow, and it's kind of cool to be doing this presentation right now. He just finished up a Ratchet and Wrench speech just a few minutes ago. Anxious to hear about how that went.
I am hoping it got recorded. I want to hear it myself.
Oh, no kidding. We'll make him do it again, right? Yeah. Well, one of the things we do in the registration for these is we do poll our clientele, and the response and feedback that we get from this was pretty interesting. What's interesting to me is actually what's not even on the pie chart. We asked some additional elements that were on this. There's only 3 responses out of, I think, the 5 or 6 different options we had. Over 3/4 of the next appointments that shops, almost 3/4, I should say, are coming from inbound calls, direct calls to the shop. Whereas this was interesting, though, at least 1/4 of things coming from the website and auto reminders, that almost evenly split. But where we got zero was in exit scheduling, which was one of the options that we presented in that. And then promotions. I know a lot of shops spend a lot of effort on promotions, and I get that inbound calls could be from those. And if you're not using different call tracking thing, there's all kinds of cool services out there that can. You might not be identifying just how effective some of those promotions really are. So the fact that this was slanted towards the inbound call, though, kind of fits my expectation of the way, fit my experience too in the industry, where we kind of waited for people to contact us with a problem. They contact us, we fix, see you later. And I always heard something that just burned me up sometimes after people were done. They had a great experience having a transmission overhauled, and they would say to me, well, this was great, but I hope I never see you again. And it's like, oh man.
Where did I go wrong today?
Yeah, it's like, I get it. Obviously,
Yeah.
no one enjoys dropping $2,000 at the auto repair
Yeah.
facility, but we really do want to see them again, and we want to partner with them towards the safe, reliable operation of their vehicle. And
Yeah.
that wasn't being communicated for the longest time in my own experience.
Yeah. Now, I have a theory on this, Craig, before I ask you, but well, how about this? I'll ask you first. That inbound call that high, what do you, I mean, that seems to fly in the face of, say, we've got people who want instant messaging, they want instant booking, they want texting. What do you think led to it being that high, just from your perspective? Like, why would we have calling so high?
I think that the onus is put squarely on the customer to only reach out to us when we have a problem. And I think that's where most of the time it's just not being communicated that we're going to reach out to you. We're helping you manage your vehicle by keeping track of a few things that, I get it, clients are busy, right? They're not going to want to keep track of when they're due for this, that, or the other thing. And there's systems that can be put into place to help do those things, whether it be through automation like those auto reminders. At least some people have that experience there. But I'd like to see that segment grow a little better, at least from a technology standpoint. Obviously, from where we sit, I'm looking at this also through a lens of the areas where I feel like, we could probably provide some solutions that people can leverage to make this simpler.
Yeah. Now, this is a theory. I'd love to see a way we could test it, but I'm wondering if some of it is the average response time of website forms. If that's like, and I'm only talking about experience as a customer. Now, again, I hang out with vehicle owner experiences. I own a car. Who doesn't, right? But in my experiences, you fill out a web form, that delay is just not good enough, right? Even if it's and I don't know what it is, maybe there is an industry stat, I haven't seen it, but I'm wondering if vehicle owners know that phone is still faster.
Oh, I think shop owners'
Right.
phone is still faster. There's still a habit that shops will have to want to just reach out and call you. Our support team knows this too. And hey, great. We teach them, of course, over time. Actually, email tickets are faster.
Yeah.
More people see those at once than a phone call, and we will call when necessary. But no, that tendency to just pick up the phone, this hasn't gone away. I mean, shoot, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the case. I mean, there weren't a lot of technological systems in place. So the habits are still ingrained in a lot of people, especially the main people who own and operate vehicles today. But ultimately, Jeremy, I look at this chart and I see there's a relational component that can be improved upon here. We always talk about this as a relationship-based business. And I think that's kind of where we need to shift our focus, right? And I love working on these things with you, because we call this like the art of advising, the art of quality control, the art of performing a DVI, and all this sort of stuff. But this does actually get down more into an actual science. There's some fun. Jeremy, you're a fun person to nerd out with on this stuff too, because we recently discussed some of the studies on this where institutions experience a failure with systems even, or processes, and why those failures occur. And the terminology used in those studies, I found it really fascinating. And this is a term I personally was not acquainted with until really recently. Customer relating capability as a concept. I think I try to be cautious in bringing in some obscure concepts like this, but this one makes, I think, immediate sense to anybody looking at our customer relating capability. And if we emphasize that a little bit more in our shops and what we can do to improve that, I think a lot of the systems and processes are going to be informed through this. And there's three main components that were introduced in this study in particular, where we're talking about the orientation of your organization towards relationships. That is, that you value them, that you value having conversations with your customers, that you value managing the vehicle for them, or value reminding them on all those things, that is a core value or a mission behind your organization. Orientation, like as an opposite of this, think about not all, but some like tire stores, or even like more so quick lube places, a very transactional type of an environment. Get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out. And that's how the experience feels in that shop. They're not very oriented towards trying to create an actual relationship built on managing the vehicle. It's really the only relationship component would be, get them to come back in for the oil change, or get them to come back in for that tire rotation. But there really isn't a whole other component to how they're going to be serviced, or a benefit of being serviced as a client of that organization. The second main component would be information. And I look at information component as something that we focus on a great deal, and specific, like a DVI and shop management systems, where you track declined services, those information pieces that we can use to reference, keep in context a conversation with our clients. And then you have the actual configuration of your company, and that is systems and processes and the actual structure that you can provide within your organization. And those three categories make, to me, a lot of sense, and allows us to kind of break up the way we look at things in our tool, and then how the tool supports various behaviors, and why it's successful in some shops and not successful in others. Car count, for example. Shops that emphasize car count, do they have deep relationships with their clients in most cases? I think no.
Yeah. There, it's I could bring in. I'd done a little homework, Craig, to see if I could find a marketing law that backed this up. These three ideas, and I stumbled across. It's actually one of my favorite books. It's 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And I mean, if you haven't read that, it's so quickly and so efficiently, and I like efficient books, right? Get to the point, give me something tangible. It's let me read it to you guys. Law of sacrifice. It's law 13. It says you have to give up something in order to get something. I love that thought, right? And as I heard you talk about those 3 points, Greg, what came to my mind was, before we can hit the 3, you have to dive into your shop strengths.
Yeah.
You have to see where it is you really excel, right? And you just said, Craig, if I'm going for car count and you're built for that, then that is a strength, right? And from that, maybe you can make something go. And the Jiffy Lubes of the world, they make a go at that, right? They go high car count. We're going to run with that, and they've sacrificed other things.
Absolutely.
Right. So the law of sacrifice, to me, it's sort of like a paradigm shift in how we think. It's like, whatever it is in your shop that is your strength, that is the core value. And I've been thinking about that for us, Craig. Like, what are our core values? You guys have brought me in VP of marketing, and like, whatever those are, we're going to sacrifice something else, but let's make sure it's not the thing that we care about. Right. So, just with every decision we make, right, the opportunity cost, we're talking about daughters. I have to go to my daughter's volleyball game later today. Well, the law of sacrifice, I'm not doing AutoTexMe later today. So, every time we make a strength decision, we know we're losing something, but it's just to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That can drive your choices and how you basically walk through these 3 steps.
Oh, absolutely. I look at this too. When we are onboarding shops, especially in the independent sector, you get independent shops that have older technicians that are used to doing a process a very specific way, and they get the reputation for being stubborn. And a lot of times I look at that guy and they seem stubborn, sure, but then when you actually start talking to them, explaining things and reorienting how the visit is going to structure, they start to get it very differently. And they aren't that resistant to the principle as much, but they're used to operating under a certain orientation and a certain configuration that this new thing doesn't fit into right away. You have to be able to train and get your team onto that. And that's kind of where we would go next on this topic, because what we look at in the areas of most importance of the study that we were looking at on why some, like CRM, very specifically CRM systems, why they would fail. And this study can go back, it was looking back all the way into the early 2000s. And it identified 3 main areas of importance, where if these areas were strong, failure was less likely. And the order of importance is on the screen right here. It's organizational structures, top-down support, and then the information and the data as the least important component of the success or failure. And I thought that was kind of intriguing, because I look at, if we're going to like tie in something from AutoTextMe to like our DVI's component there, that is an information component. We're gathering information, we're presenting information, we're using data to support a relationship, right? It's putting context to why we have a relationship at all with this individual client. But the data, as important as data is, and you hear like data as one of the most important things and a valuable resource, and it is, and it's not saying it isn't. It's just saying that in terms of that CRC concept, that customer relation capability, it's the most insignificant variable next to organizational structures and the top-down training and support that we have on our team to develop those relationships with the client.
Yeah, now, Craig, would you say, like, if we were trying to put words on that, like powerful words, like the very top, I found two ways to label. I want to test you at this. At the top, would you say that that's more like wisdom, and at the bottom is more smart or knowledge? And the way I would equate this, I don't know if you guys heard this, it always helps me keep the two in perspective. It's, wisdom, if you're smart, you know that a tomato is a fruit, right?
Sure.
If you're wise, you know not to put that tomato in a fruit salad. And it's sort of how I'm looking at this right here. It's like, if you don't have the structure in place, right, and you could have all of the smarts you need, that fruit salad is going to be awful, right? It's because so I like to sometimes view these things in something that would help me like structure my next step. So that was, like, again, if what we're about to give away there, right, that delivery checklist, without something like that, even if you had all the data we're about to give you and you don't have the structure to make it happen, right?
100%. Yeah. And this is a structure piece, right? So we have this free download, and we'll put that in chat for you too. You'll also see a QR code at the end of our webinar where you'll be able to download this. It's just a turnkey vehicle checklist, right? What we're doing in documents like that is we're trying to provide a structured framework. So when we get to that organizational structure piece, like this is where we spend some time doing process analysis. This is where we build out checklists and things like AutoTextMe. We do our quality control checklist, right? That's a core component of something that we do at the end of a visit. And when we're talking on client retention, this is an area where a lot of organizations simply don't structure their counter staff or anyone else to give them any sort of resources to drive that customer back in the door. I see this all the time. And that very closely related is the top-down support, the training to use those pieces, non-existent, certainly not written down anyways. We might talk about training. We might talk about like, hey, you need to do this better. But what I see most shops looking to do is they hire this rock star manager. He's got this great experience. He did wonderful things someplace else. Hire him, put him in. He's doing great things for me now until he's gone. And then that person's gone. And now everything's just topsy-turvy again. There's nothing left. It was all weighted on an individual who had his own process. It never made it to the company level over and over again. Yeah, this piece for me, I felt like this is useful. From an onboarding perspective with new shops, I feel that this was useful. Then we started talking about the top 3 mistakes, and I felt like we had this framework and this discussion all set before we even brought in that other piece. And I was amazed at how that study actually complemented these points. The mistakes that shops make, I mean, it feels almost judgy to sit and say like, these are the problems that we see, but this is just what we hear about the most. And I think that it's worth diving into why we labeled these as we have, right?
Yeah, and why? And there we go, Craig. Look, we put it first. You have not built a loyalty ladder. So wouldn't you say this one it's right in line with structure?
100%.
It's also right in line with what we were just talking about. What are your strengths? I mean, here is your opportunity. So just to kind of, if anyone hasn't heard the term, we're working on this one. The acronym for it is in its fullest extent is CELL, CELL, Customer Engagement Loyalty Ladder. And what that helps us know, and this is going to vary by shop. It's not supposed to be like a hard, fast rule, but the idea is that your customer has a clear path, almost like a ladder in front of them that's presented to them. And every rung, when you climb a ladder, you don't look at the 12th rung. You wouldn't climb a ladder very successfully. So we're not asking our customer, our first time customer, to all of a sudden be our best promoter. That just wouldn't make sense. That's not how our minds work. We don't go from, meh, right, to all of a sudden we absolutely love you. Now, in some shops that may happen, right? We saved them. Their daughter's car brakes were fixed, and it's amazing, best thing ever. But it's to have a system and a structure that every customer, regardless of where they come in, and maybe they started on rung 3, right? Some customers knew about you from their mom. Some had a different experience that was positive, or maybe they took the time to read your Google reviews. The idea is wherever they come, whatever rung they're on, it's the next one that matters. And it's that you have a ladder that gets them to take those things. Yes. So that's why on that first bullet point, Craig, I love that one. Customers don't know. So remember, we were talking about the 3 things that doom retention, right? This isn't, so we think retention's poor. Just if you did nothing, retention's poor, because we all have short attention spans. We all have Google searches. We all are looking for fast. We're all looking for easy. We're all looking, right? This is what our minds always go: fast, easy, quick. And if it's not going to happen, so
just describe the life of a service advisor and their tasks, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. So on that, I'm thinking, all right, if they don't know what it means to be a client, and you kind of brought that word, I usually use the word member there, but I get what you're saying, Craig. The words, we're interchanging those. We're saying, if you're going from customer to client, that could be a step-by-step journey. And it could end with, here's where we want it to end. They have an automated way that they could refer a friend to you. Like, think of that as the end. Like, let's say that was your last rung, right? Maybe the one right before that is they had an easy way to leave you a review and maybe entered into a drawing. So
yeah, I'm hearing like an important exercise like a shop could do in their next team meeting, perhaps, is define what those rungs on that ladder actually are. Yeah.
And it's good. It's going to vary. Some shops have rolled out programs like a prepaid maintenance plan, right? Or they're testing subscriptions. So there's some real work to be done in our industry. I think each shop, one of the ways I've looked at it too, Craig, where are your biggest pain points if you could figure out why customers don't come back? Aside from the classic moved away, there's some other ones, but that's one of the spots. So when I'm thinking through it, I usually go, guys, where's your biggest pain point that seems to be where a customer basically starts ghosting you? Something happened, right? 7 postcards later, 8 text messages later, right? 13 months have gone by and you haven't seen them, yet they still own 2.4 cars. What happened, right? So, and that's the elusive part, right? That's where it does take work, to kind of get in there. And then even if you did know that, then they don't know, but then it has to be better. And so, Craig, I put down 3 words, and I don't want to take the whole time.
No, I love this, Jerry.
Okay, 3 words that, like, when a customer says what they want, I feel like we have to do a paradigm shift. It's back to the law of sacrifice. When the customer tells us they want fast, because they do, we would always want to say, but you don't want it at a sacrifice of quality.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I saw a perfect example of this on a shop owner forum where they were complaining about the fact that the customer complained about how long it was taking the vehicle to get through for an oil change. Part of their inspection process is normally to always check a battery. So since the customer complained that it was taking too long, they shortcut that piece. They didn't check the battery. A week later, battery failed, and customers complaining, don't you check this? It's like, right? There's a sacrifice. You lose and lose.
So that's where I think back to, if as a shop, we are looking at our core strengths, then that helps us build what we're willing to sacrifice. And then from there, you can build your ladder. So, and that was the first. The other one where, customer says they want convenience, which means, easy, simple. But what they don't want is a sacrifice of, now I'm just a number in your system, right? They don't just want total automation. They want to be called by their first name. So that you don't want to sacrifice that because you're being so convenient, the whole thing seems automated, right? The other one I came up with was when someone says they want affordable, sure, or cheap, but they don't want it at the sacrifice of value. So it's having those things in mind of what it is your customer's perceiving, and then trying to win that by reframing it.
Yeah.
Kind of hit
Reframing
them in
is
the
perfect
pass.
word.
Yeah, yeah. Hit them at the
Perfect word.
pass with your ladder that tells them why you're going to want it to be a trusted, valuable, right? A
Yeah.
personable experience
What
today.
their benefits look like on that is very different. Bob Greenwood was my coach. Many of you know he passed away last year. Good man. He changed my whole trajectory in our business. And I remember sitting there in his class the first time he was even using his language on there of customers versus clients, and like, what's the difference? He's asking this question to the group, and of course, the answers do differ. It perhaps always will, especially if you have a unique ladder of your own. But there were some things that were really evident out of the gate. A customer, for example, we can identify what a customer is very easily in this business. It's that lube oil filter customer that comes in the door and is telling you and your team, don't look at it. Like,
Yeah.
don't do it. Don't do the inspection, right? Have you moved that person off that first rung? No. How are we
Yeah.
going to do it? How do we sell the value of the inspection? Why we do the inspection? What the benefit of that inspection is for our relationship as your repair facility, the people who are going to help make sure your vehicle is safe, reliable, and efficient. And that's a whole different ball game. And it's better for them if they let us play that ball game with them.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So Jeremy, that's really good. Did you have another point on that piece?
No, I was
Okay,
ready for
perfect.
us to move to two.
Perfect. Yeah, because this is exactly where we want to be moving. Let's get there. And we have number 2, forgetting to set expectations.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't bring this up. I almost brought it up in step 1, but I go, nope, I gotta wait for right here.
Yes. Yes, it's and we mention this a lot. We mention this in most of our other advising classes as well. I'll be mentioning it when we're teaching next week at ASTE as we're leveraging inspections during the visit. If you don't expect to receive an inspection, delivering that to somebody who's not expecting it is a lot less effective, for example. But we aren't communicating when clients, especially at the end of our visit, when they are going to hear from us next, and how they can engage us when they do hear from us on those. A lot of times like we do automated text. We do that a lot with Auto Text Me, but if the shop isn't setting the stage for that, and they aren't letting the customer know through some call to action that that's something they can reply to, or even better, that they can reach back out to the shop through that channel, and we'll see it very easily and quick. It's easier than getting a phone call. All of those things fall under this bucket. And this is where advisors who are in a hurry seem to me to fail the most at this. The higher the car count goes, the fewer expectations that get set. And that means fewer retention possibilities.
That's where, Craig, I like our really what we're saying, kind of one of the new things we're saying around here: automate your profits. It feels like this is where you can, yes, be personal, right? In that you had a loyalty ladder. You were going to do it right back to step 1. But that last part is that on step 1, Craig said, a clear path to re-engagement. And this too is the transition to that. If the clients are not sure why it's taking so long, what's the clear path for them to engage that lack of knowledge, right? Because as they're unclear, the longer a customer goes in an unclear state, it's not that they're mad, but that's frustration. And that's for all of us, right? Why is it that Amazon now sends us the delivery stop note? We're now 10 stops away, right? I don't know if you guys, it's like, whoo, they're a little over the top, but the point is to be said that it's a lack of knowledge that leads to frustration, right? Even like if you have a lump on your right arm, it's actually the lack of knowledge and not going to the doctor yet to know the expectations of what the lump is.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot like that at the shop too. Like that day of service, and maybe 90 days later, or maybe 30 days later on a deferred service item, were we aware of how important that item was, when we might hear back, and what was a clear path to re-engage when maybe I had a symptom show back up on the car? Like, oh, that's right, they said I was supposed to, so having that clear path, though, maybe it's the oil change sticker, right? Maybe it's you had some kind of I like to call it something you leave in the car, and I think we'll touch on that delivery checklist.
Oh, sure, yes.
So there's a couple things there. I don't want to give it all away, but there's some things there where if the customer's got a feeling like, could I immediately check my service history? I had that thought that I remembered something, but I don't want to take the time to call the shop. So just all of those things are help you be top of mind for that re-engagement.
Well stated. And you mentioned something too, that not knowing piece. Like I always like the phrase, fear is not knowing.
Yeah.
It is the root of most fears. And have you ever had this where someone calls the shop and they're apologizing? I'm sorry. I hope I'm not bothering you. It's like, and they wanted an update on something. Like, this is one of those
Yeah.
key things, like, oh my gosh, why is that customer apologizing to me? Like, no, we want them to feel like it's okay to reach out. Maybe a phone call is not the best way. Everyone understands, like, everyone has to stop what they're doing to answer a phone. That's why
Yeah.
text is so much more valuable. But the fact that someone would withhold reaching out, even though they wanted to, out of fear of potentially disrupting you. Most people are nice. And I know we have our gripes about clients, or I should say probably customers in the auto repair business. And some of them seem justified, but a lot of times when you put yourself in their shoes, man, the anxiety level is something else. Nobody knows how it's supposed to go in this shop versus another shop. And you should know that too, because how many of you shops out there are the types that'll also say, we do things a little different here. Right now, you're having that conversation with your customers that are new to your shop, but have been to maybe 12, 15 others in their lifetime, and they had different set of expectations to it. Explain to them what is different here. Tell them what is different here, how it's going to work, and how they can fit in with it. It's all training piece. We haven't had to even introduce too many pieces of technology or other tools at this point. It's just
it's
communication.
Now, Craig, I should say on that difference maker point, right? If you are a difference maker shop and you are different for one reason, I like to think about it though. Let's be careful on the word that we think is different. And here's an example. If I said that I was a trustworthy politician, if you don't think that the opposite position would be taken by anybody, then your different claim may not be that different at all. Right. So if I had banners on everyone's yard and I said, Jeremy's an honest politician, well, not one politician is going to claim to be a dishonest politician. So by me just saying I'm an honest politician, that's not the difference maker. Now, it may be true, but so finding words and things that your customers can do and engage that truly are different, it's something that other shops are not doing. They're going to have an anti-position to your different. That's powerful. So I would say rack your brain on it, guys. Like, if you can think what makes you different and then test it against other shops, would they claim the opposite? And see how it goes.
That's great.
It's a fun challenge. It'll take you down into a storm cloud of thoughts, but it's helpful, guys, because different, again, who's just going to walk around saying you're an honest politician?
No, I feel like this would be another great spot to bring in Chris's Kano slides.
Oh, he would. Yeah, he would. Go watch the recording last time, right?
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. The must-haves, the performance items, the delighters, that falls right into that bucket real quick. Yeah. So let's talk about this piece. And I think we brought it up in the science element, right? Staff not being trained. And this is always one of those spots that comes up, but it comes up in a different face every single time. I see people that are just either they seem unwilling or something else, but really the unwillingness, again, I'm going to point back, when you have staff that seem unwilling, that should raise one warning flag out of the gate. Are you actually supporting them the way they need the support to do the thing you're asking them to do? And this is the hardest conversation with some shop owners. I see, and I'll do it because I've been in a managerial position with a family business for so long that I know how hard it is to move the people at the top, self included, and yet you have sometimes this upswell motion in the shop, and you just need to be able to identify that they're looking for you to provide that process, the sense of purpose, and the training in order to support what you're going for, or what they're going for, at least.
And Greg, this one almost could have been point 1, 2, and 3, right? It feels like this hits on, first of all, structure, right? If you don't have structure in place to do training well, but then, I mean, wouldn't you say that if the staff, they're just going to be overloaded? I mean, that's what we're seeing everywhere. Like there really is too much.
That's partly an orientation piece, right? When you have overloaded staff, I've seen this before. A shop I was talking to, they do a wonderful job with inspections on most of the cars that come in, but then car count soars, like really good numbers, vehicles moving through the shop. And every time that number goes up, the amount of inspections correlates in a little bit of a dip.
Percentage-wise dips, yeah.
Yes, because they're overwhelmed. And one of the pieces that came up in conversation with the shop is because I'm one of these guys that's like, car count isn't the most important thing, and we can prove it mathematically. We could go down this road. You could do with fewer cars, schedule some of those oil changes a little differently or more advantageous, or maybe it's a staffing issue. There's all sorts of reasons why handling that volume of cars, sometimes saying no to things is okay. But the directive from the owner very specifically was this: never say no to a customer that wants to make an appointment. That was the orientation piece for that owner, and what it actually can do if you're not staffed well enough, and if your processes can't process all those vehicles, is it makes a worse experience for many of the people that came through the door. And if you're not able to move those individuals up that ladder that we've talked about, all of this can fall apart.
Yeah. So Craig, that's interesting that owner you're talking about was not willing to sacrifice booking.
Bingo.
Was not willing to sacrifice booking every appointment. So other things got sacrificed.
Totally. My grandpa recently passed away, and he was an industry stalwart for a lot of reasons. Very complicated man for many reasons too. And he was complicated in the sense that he had phrases and he had teachings and lessons. And one of those two phrases he used all the time, and they were often back to back, is, Craig, you got to be all things to all people. And the second phrase was, Craig, you can't be all things to all people. It's like
complicated.
Yes. Paradoxic.
Yeah.
Truth.
Now,
right.
Yeah. And Craig, that's why I'm really excited. I think you're going to get into showing tools, right? This is where I feel like this is where, as you know, AutoTextMe clients, like we're trying to figure this out, how to show the best we can in our tools to minimize the training happens, yes, on the upfront, but then on the back end, how these automated things can happen, how we've got the tools in place where your staff are not letting down your structure, you're following through, you have a ladder. And so I was excited to see you get into the tool.
Absolutely. And that's how we like to break these things up. So thank you, Jeremy. And this is the list of the things that we want to talk about in the tool on your screen. I'm not going to be able to hit in detail on each of these things. What I want to do is just show a few of the pieces in the context of the conversation that we're having, sort of a scenario-based type of a approach to this. So I'm going to close that presentation screen down, and you guys are going to see, and Jeremy, confirm for me this.
Got it, Craig. Awesome auto service.
You know it. All right. So we have a few things on this board that I want to draw attention to that help complement some like expectation settings, how things can look at the end of the visit, and how this all plays out. And the areas of the tool that do this really, really well, this again falls under that data piece. We do not have a shortage of data for your team to leverage. In our tool, and probably in your shop management systems as well, you guys have lots of data. So now it's just a matter of how you're using these tools to leverage that data in light of these conversations. Text Manager is one of the most important pieces that we've altered in AutoTextMe in this year. I think this was around the second quarter that this was introduced. And the area of it that I'm going to draw attention to that I feel is very useful for someone checking out a customer is you open this text manager, you pull open your conversation with Joe Paluca, and you will see on that lower right, the scheduled messages. Jeremy, we've talked several times now about letting customers know how we're going to reach out to them next and when.
Yeah.
With the automation abilities inside of AutoTextMe, that customer is right there at the counter. We can review a couple of these items, and you might even find in this review that maybe the customer actually was taking care of some of those items today, and we can go in and manage a few pieces like that to keep that relevant for that individual. If we afford our service advisors just a couple, how long did it take to open this up and click that button? A few seconds to come in here. If they're primed and ready to go and trained to leverage this piece in the conversation while that customer is going through that pickup process, that can be pretty effective. And it gives you the ability to click straight into the reminders queue. And if the customer had no future scheduled reminders, or maybe you don't even use them with automation, that's fine. I actually love doing custom reminders. I'm very cautious in the types of automated reminders I'll ever do. But within AutoTextMe, we make it very simple on the spot while the customer is right there to ask the question. Exit scheduling, right? This is I'm sad, guys. I talk exit scheduling a lot and nobody mentioned it in the poll as something that they were getting appointments from. And it's just, I want to see this take root in the business because I think it's very effective. I never would make it to the dentist if I didn't schedule my next appointment at the dentist while I was in the dentist, right? So we get shot down, right, Jeremy? Though exit scheduling, it's a 30% success rate when you try to do that with an automotive repair customer.
Yeah.
And so people stop doing it. Just like, we don't have the same mind as a dog or a cat that's hunting for a prey animal out there where they can hunt and fail, hunt and fail, hunt and fail, and finally eat and feel good about it and still go hunt again. We stop hunting pretty quick when we get shot down, certain personalities in ways. So you fail at the exit schedule piece. All right, I'm going to schedule a reminder to reach out to you. Just to remind you that it's going to come due at that time. A likelihood of them shooting you down twice, very low. And it's very simple to do that custom reminder. You can start typing the customer's name. They're going to appear right there for you. You put in the piece, you set the date, you set the time, and that goes into the queue. And it's a very, very effective and poignant reminder when it's a deliberate one.
Now, where will they find that in the tool, Craig?
So great question. So you don't need text manager. Oh, yeah. So if you didn't come from text manager administrators, it's in your menu, but service advisors, it's also in yours as well. You'll see the reminder queue. Service advisors, your menu is going to be a lot shorter than the admin menu. But you go right into reminders. It's that appointment follow-up piece. And this is searchable based on when the reminder is scheduled. That's the key for this search field on the date there. So you want to go ahead and see things, but each individual that has reminders you can use. There's lots of fun stuff you can do here. If you want to go forward on this a little bit, and that should give me a few more things on my screen. You are probably going to have a lot more than a couple customers and probably not as many Joe Palookas on your shop, but watch what happens if I'm looking for Lou. I can find all of the items that Lou has, right?
That's
and
powerful.
I want to see Joe. Yeah, I can see Joe, right? But all of this, I feel like is even more beneficial just straight from the text manager screen, because you've had recent conversations. All of your recent conversations are going to be right here at your fingertips. So you go into those scheduled messages and you'll see that. And guys, if you don't see that, just remember settings. You see that button right there. If it's hidden, show it, because that is where this is. I always keep this out. Fun piece.
So Craig, just a quick question. It is tool related. I'm thinking that you brought up the dentist, right? It's, the technician's working on my teeth, and then I head over to a different person, right? So they almost like shuttle you off to a little counter.
Yes.
Make sure you
perfect
do this.
Observation. Yeah.
Make sure you do this on your way out. That's kind of an interesting thought, right? Because I know that's what you're wanting us all to do, is book those exit appointments on the way out. Maybe that's part of a process like I would dream up in my shop. I don't own one, but I'm already thinking that I'd almost want them to deal with the advisor, and then almost like, and on your way out, when you grab the free bag of popcorn or whatever, go ahead and write down I don't know, just this thought where, because the
industry is used to doing this much more passively, right? And this is a little bit more of an assertive approach, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it at first because it's different. It is different, right? But and a lot of people I've met are just not comfortable being that assertive with their clients at all. But it's usually, we're all insecure. What's
our take on that, Greg? What's our take on the lack of assertion there on that point? It
feels bad when people say no to you.
Okay.
Right? Fear. Yeah. It simply makes us sad as human beings when something that we care about isn't reflected. And that for someone who's trained and properly motivated to handle those objections, because guys, that's going to be the norm. You can expect the rejection initially. If somebody were telling me to schedule out the appointment for my brakes X amount of time or something like that, it's like, I don't know that they'll actually be bad at that point. And it's getting closer to Christmas around then. So I'm probably going to be busy with a party. I don't know. But you know what? Once something's on my calendar, I tend to make it happen.
Yeah, you work around it. So, well, I'm just playing along here, Craig. What if you had a cool business card on the one side, it just was a big smiley face, and it just said on there, "This is going to make you smile." And then on the other side, "I've already booked your next appointment to take."
Oh, totally, dude. Yeah.
Let's
pretty
get away
assertive, right? And what they might say, I wish you didn't make that appointment. Here's the thing about appointments, guys.
It gives them a chance to.
Hey, if they cancel it, you can discuss rescheduling it then.
Yeah. So Craig, is that true? Is it easy in our tool for that customer to go, "Hey, I got to reschedule. I got to cancel this," right?
Not only is that true in our tool, it's true for the customer to have full control over it. If you go into the AI messaging, I did that very quickly. I'll show this to you again. But if you turn this on, you can teach your customers how to leverage this. You can teach the customers the language that goes involved in this. You could build this into some follow-up message. If you need to cancel your appointment, type to us, cancel appointment, right? And then we can do a lot of other things too. I usually don't use that one
That's
because I want to stage the conversation personally. I don't want the autoresponder doing it, in my personal opinion.
Sure.
But I would
But
train
they
my
have
staff
the
to do
options
it.
in here then. Okay.
100%. Yep. And this again, that's in the AI setup. Really, my recommendations, if you guys are using AI setup, and you can set up your customers to know this too. Part of saying to people that texting is a great way to reach out to us, that it's the best way to reach out to us. Like, please don't leave me a voicemail, for Pete's sake, reach out to us by text, right? Is after hour stuff. Because why is voicemail effective for someone that want to call? You can call anytime, you know you're going to get that voicemail. Do they know that your text message is going to be received? Do they have any indicator if they text you after hours? Auto text me is probably the most powerful automated piece, is the shop after hour message in that AI setup. So you see the icon in your menus, administrators, you will see this. You see AI setup, you go right into that piece. And that is where you can put that on. I do recommend, and Michael and I, when we train shops, we'll usually try to turn this one on and give them that expectation. I even built it into this example message. Thanks for reaching out. Expect a reply when we open on the next business day.
That's so, Craig, what would you think about the option of, and maybe it's there, the missed call converted to a text?
So I actually teach shops to put in their outgoing voicemail,
Yeah.
the text number that they can reach out to. And
Okay.
you can have fun with it, guys. Tell them that. Don't leave
about
a
a call? What about a call, Craig, where the call doesn't get through to voicemail? It's a brief call. I feel like that's a feature request.
Where it's a missed call, but it never even went to
let's
voicemail.
say it's a missed call, and we go, hey, do you have something real quick, like, to get us more information on, sorry, missed your call, reply right here, something along those lines.
Yeah, we aren't tracking calls in Auto Text Me. We'd have to be able to do that, but I hear where you're going, Jeremy. I like your point.
It would set the expectations, right?
Heck yeah.
Like the expectation that, hey, we love that you called us.
Well, speaking of expectations, though, one of the areas I enjoy is, and especially if you did miss a call and you see on your caller ID that you missed someone, but you recognize it's Joe Palooka calling you here, you can go right into the predefined message and you can manually pound out some sort of message. Sorry, missed your call. That could be an excellent example of a predefined message. And those are set up, folks, in that workflow setup screen. It's worth visiting workflow setup briefly here too. We're going to come back to the actual workflow piece, but I want to highlight the predefined outbound text, because that, what you described, Jeremy, this is a perfect case for this.
Okay,
right?
Excellent.
Like,
I'm glad we had it.
Sorry, we missed your call. You can text us here.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh. So that's now a predefined outbound text. So what does that look like for an advisor, right? So Joe Palooka called, we missed it. We hit the text button. We actually can just start typing sorry and it'll find itself there. But if you don't even want to put your fingers on the keyboard because it's already on the mouse, fine, predefined, sorry, missed your call, click, click, boom. Customer's got that message. You don't miss a beat. Very effective.
And wouldn't you say that's a subtle way right there? We just subtly showed them how texting is faster at our shop.
We literally just taught the customer something like, oh yeah, I shouldn't even picked up and dialed. I could have just replied here in the text.
Like, look at this. This is like, that's probably the fastest way to get him off the phone, right, Craig?
Well, this is one of those pieces that I was going to mention in the workflow setup as well. And again, like, if you've set up, and several of our clients have been with us for years now, and they might not visit this as often anymore, but you should revisit this periodically. This is fully customizable workflow items. And what I need these texting statuses to do is support the expectations that my front counter staff has been trained to set, right? So our touch points should be very clearly defined. It actually makes me super sad if I go and look at a shop and I see a silent workflow, especially before the inspection piece. I need this check-in message. I need this to be there. And every time I have the conversation with the client, I'm going to support this. And this is the message. It has a simple call to action here too. The call to action is a passive one. Look for updates by text.
Great. They know what to expect.
They know what to expect.
They
You can also reach out to us here anytime. 2 things, very few characters.
Yeah. How many phone calls would you think that would save on your average ticket? Right? Just this text alone.
If you see 400 cars a month, like some shops are seeing, it's hundreds.
Of minutes, because now they know not to call. They're like, hey, I'm just waiting for my text. So
we've had in our engagement report too a sliding calculator that tries to track the average length of a phone call and how many phone calls get saved by text and the dollar value of that. And then it's pretty staggering, the number. And what it does for me is, and I've been the advisor for, I had 5 technicians I was one advisor to 5 techs, 7.5 bay shop, and one was alignment bay. And that I had 2 phone lines and they were always ringing, guys. And my eye was always twitching. And it was super, super stressful with that ratio. And I know there's other shops and service advisors suffering with that. These take a ton of load off there and reduce the chaos. But make sure you define which statuses are doing this, folks. I love spending time on this topic because it's so important. People freak out with automated status updates on text because what if it's been here 4 hours and we just got into the inspection. Now it sends them a text that we just started the inspection, but their appointment was like 4 hours ago. Oh my goodness, they're going to be so upset. No, they'll actually be really upset if you lie to them about what the true status of the vehicle is, and they'll probably find out. But if you actually are sticking to a process and setting realistic expectations up front when that customer made the appointment, it's not scary at all. It's only scary if you're winging it. And I text on these statuses that you see without parentheses. Those are the examples I typically use. Not every status is made for texting.
Yeah. And Craig, this does kind of touch on that third point of it being the information data that's the provision to the customer of the information, right? And if they knew that they were going to get these throughout the day or the hours, then finally, that's the missing information that prevented them from fearing, from being, hesitant.
You're going to see. Yeah, you're going to see that each one of these lets them know what's happening next. When you build these messages out to let them know the next thing to expect, it is very helpful. Look for results here shortly for the inspection, right? And then when we send the inspection, we'll have them, let them view that. And there's all those things. And then there's the please call the shop when you can element on the requires authorization piece. Then there's in servicing, right? We'll update you with our progress when we have more to report, right? We're continually letting them know that we're engaged in keeping you updated. They don't need to call the shop on that stuff. This is powerful and goes straight to what we're talking about with retention. We've established a relationship that's based on these sort of updates. And now we're in that final point. And what am I doing? I'm teaching that our final checks are complete and your vehicle is ready for it. I've taught them that we've been checking out the vehicle to make sure it's safe and ready for them.
Yeah.
That matters. And please contact us when you're able. We need to have a conversation now about picking up your car. Please contact us. And how do you think they're going to contact you after they've been texting with you throughout the day? They're going to start hopefully by text as well, which is a lot easier than the phone chats. Then it continues, folks. And this is where we get into that follow-up piece. The follow-up piece is powerful. This is the thank you message. And this is also where we have the customer score and review requests. This is fun because for relational purposes, if we're capturing some of this data from clients and asking them for the review, you'll recall on my dashboard, if you see these faces, this is showing us the customer
smiles
sense. Yeah. And neutrals aren't bad. Actually, when you're talking about NPS scores, larger corporations are very focused on NPS because they consider 0 through 6 detractors, 7 through 8 are the neutrals. The 9 and 10s are your promoters. They want to convert people into promoters. It's a very short ladder, right, Jeremy? Yeah. But it's a ladder.
But it's a ladder. It's 10, 10 steps, 10
So
scores.
How do we get this customer out of here? Well, if they gave us good feedback, we're going to know. And then we know that this customer gave us that feedback about being potentially pricey. Never bothered me because we would communicate then value. We know that we have to spend a little bit of extra time discussing with that customer why this matters.
We had to sacrifice something.
Yeah. So there's other areas of the tool I'd love to go into. Actually, there is one I'm going to touch on very, very briefly, because remember, we talked about information being one of the least important variables for CRM type utilities to be successful. And I look at DVI as a component of CRM, that's customer relations management, right? Part of our relationship depends on this data still. This data from the digital inspection is key, and we can see the items that we left unaddressed from our previous visits. And this can be scheduled a variety of ways, right from this rainy day folder. So if we have an individual trained whose job is to review this information or keep up to date during the visit even, you can actually schedule out these reminders as well. And they're reminders. They get a link for the inspection that is different from the normal link for the inspection in one key way. At the top of it for the rainy reminder, they'll have an option to schedule the appointment.
Now, Craig, if you were a shop owner and you knew you only had one training session with your staff this week, and you knew you were doing neither of these, you weren't using the rainy day folder, and you were not presetting appointments, where would you go with that next training?
You
Of
know,
those
the
two?
next training is going to focus actually on two elements. I want to draw some specific attentions to the behaviors inside of the text manager because it's a newer feature, but then
Okay.
I would actually focus a lot more on the digital inspection and
Okay.
how that is used to track whether items were approved or
So
not.
you'd take option C, which I didn't give you, which I love, which is you would say, let's actually build the data the correct way, right? Inside
Yes.
the DVI itself.
Yeah, because if we're already trained on relational model stuff, like
Yeah.
the tool doesn't have to do those conversations as much for you. You built it into your workflow. Some of it's automated. The verbal conversations you're having, the staff training that goes involved into making sure your business is oriented, all these things can happen outside of the tool. Now we're in the tool, and this is where data gets managed to be leveraged to
Got it.
support the relationship with the client, always in the context of why the relationship matters. Why does this piece matter for our relationship with the client? We are helping you make sure your vehicle is safe, reliable, and efficient. And we are going to help make sure you don't forget about these items and that they get managed and taken care of in a way that is agreeable to both of us. And your schedule peaks and valleys stop going up and down. Their budget stops peaking up and down with their vehicle maintenance. It's a win-win, folks. And when you can communicate that stuff to your client, it is a much more effective approach. Now, as promised, I do want to make sure that we don't forget to go back into our final piece here. We'll go back full screen mode. We have a vehicle delivery checklist. This checklist does go through a lot of the behaviors that we want to accomplish at the end of a visit. I find it to be pretty succinct. I find it to be really simple. That list, I would love to get some feedback. If you guys take that and run with it, please do.
And
You'll
Craig,
see,
they've got the QR code, and I also just put it in the chat for
perfect.
For attendees.
Yeah, on this, it's a simple list, folks. We have things on there like that the vehicle, it's a vehicle delivery checklist. We're going to perform a quality control, for example. We're going to notify the client that by text that there's a call to action. This is when they're picking up the car, right? We're going to inquire if the customer has any questions. We're going to resell the client on the services that they chose to purchase today and make sure that that customer that may be done with that sad face on my screen, right? She's not going to have that critique on the price. We're going to offer the client the replaced parts. Law here in Michigan, probably everywhere in the country, I believe. Express the benefits of your warranty. A lot of times it goes unstated. People might have a problem. They don't even bring it back, and maybe they're scared to or what, but they should know about these things. Then we're going to alert the client to the things they didn't take care of today. We're going to offer to schedule the services or schedule the reminders in the event they don't want to schedule the services, right? We showed you how to do that in the tool. And we're also going to reset those communication expectations moving forward. And that is one of the most important things. And Jeremy, the last point on there, I know it's dear to you with the provision in the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what are you doing with that piece?
Well, I'm glad you put this together into a checklist, Craig, because I sometimes, there's so much going on. If we don't have a nice checklist like this, I would be lost.
It's structure. It's just structure, folks. If you can structure this part of the visit and train your staff to do it every single time, you'd be amazed. This is the simplest thing that you're going to do to improve your retention out of this conversation. But Jeremy, I'm going to draw one more point back to the item in the vehicle, leaving a card, leaving a flyer in the vehicle with that. Note.
So what that is, so Craig, that could be so many things. It's back to where we started. What are your strengths? And what is it that you're not willing to sacrifice, and then give them a clear next step. So that could be whatever you want that to be in the car, something special to make you different and to give them a way to re-engage. And that could be, I mean, just throw out a couple. That could be, I personally like to see something hanging in my rearview mirror that's maybe got your photo of you, it's a family owned shop of your family and a nice signature saying, thanks for coming today. We wanted to exceed expectations. How did we do? And
I love that question.
A simple little question that, and send us a text. How did we do? Right. Even it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just people don't want complicated. They want to know that they were appreciated today. and then
100%.
given a next step to take. So
At the
that's
end of the
just one
day,
way.
your legacy is always one thing, and that is how you made other people feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's one of your spots to do that, right? In a
Oh,
nice, maybe a nice
absolutely.
printed piece with maybe a QR code. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, well, I wish I could leave something in everyone's vehicles right here, but all we have for you is this QR code. I
In
do
a
want to
way,
thank everyone so much for your attention today. I'm Craig O'Neill. With me is Jeremy Glasgow. If you need to reach us, our information is, well, it's not available right there, actually. But we'll make sure that Joe puts that in post-production.
yes. Thanks, Craig. It was fun.
Hey, thanks. We'll talk soon. See y'all.